The House Oversight Committee room was filled with bright lights, cameras, and silence that felt like pressure. Every chair was taken. Every reporter sat forward. Kash Patel, the newly appointed acting FBI director, walked into the hearing room, wearing a crisp black suit and a red tie that made him stand out. He moved like a man who knew he had control. His face showed no fear, only calm calculation. Across from him sat Representative Jasmine Crockett, one of the youngest members of Congress, dressed in a purple blazer that glowed under the lights. Her eyes didn't leave Patel from the moment he walked in. She had waited weeks for this hearing. The cameras clicked as both figures prepared for what looked like just another political exchange, but everyone in the room felt it. Something was different today. The committee chair gave his short welcome, then turned the floor over to Rep. Crockett. "Director Patel," she began, voice steady. "Thank you for being here today." Patel nodded, his smile barely noticeable. "Always an honor to serve the people, Representative." Crockett adjusted her microphone. "We're here to discuss your handling of classified materials, particularly the statement you made on television last month." The room was quiet. Journalists typed quickly, sensing tension. "You claimed," she continued, holding up a transcript, "that all documents were properly declassified under your watch." "Yes," Patel replied firmly. "Everything was by the book." Crockett raised her eyebrows and turned to a second paper. "Yet, under oath 2 weeks earlier, you said you weren't directly involved in the declassification process, which, one is true." Patel's smile didn't fade. "Context matters, Representative. Those were different situations." The crowd murmured slightly. Crockett leaned in. "So, the truth depends on who's listening." Some members of the committee shifted uncomfortably. Others smirked. Patel, unshaken, replied, "You're twisting my words. This is the kind of political attack Americans are tired of." This time, a few people in the room clapped softly. "You're new to Congress," Patel added, voice growing sharper. "I've served presidents, managed intelligence operations, and protected this country while people like you played headlines." Gasps. A few Republican members grinned. The chairman leaned forward, ready to step in. But Crockett raised her hand calmly. "Let him speak," she said. In the back of the room, a tall man with glasses sat quietly, listening closely. His name was Thomas Ray, a former CIA analyst now working as a private consultant. He narrowed his eyes as Patel repeated, a sentence that didn't sit right with him. "I signed the final report on June 3rd, Patel had said. "All documents were accounted for." Thomas frowned. That line was too perfect, too rehearsed. He had seen the internal memo once, weeks ago, and something about that date. It bothered him. Back on the floor, Crockett flipped through her notes, eyes calm but focused. "Director," she said slowly, "I have 2 certified versions of the same memo, your June 3rd memo, one with a digital signature, one without." Patel blinked but didn't react. In one, the language is broad. The other? Specific. Very specific. And that's not normal procedure. The committee fell into a sharp silence. A reporter in the front row stopped typing. Patel leaned forward, voice lower now. "You're reading things into this that aren't there. You clearly don't understand how classified documentation works." Crockett smiled, but her voice carried weight. "Before Congress, I was a lawyer for 15 years. I understand a legal inconsistency when I see one." Patel adjusted his cufflinks, pretending to be unfazed. But for the first time, a small muscle twitched in his jaw. Meanwhile, Thomas Ray stepped into the hallway, pulling out his phone. He opened a secure messaging app and sent a message to a journalist he trusted. "Watch Patel's June 3rd memo. It's not just about documents." Back inside, Crockett closed her folder and looked directly at Patel. "I'm not accusing, not yet. I'm simply asking, who edited your memo after it was archived? Patel said nothing for a moment. Then, softly, "That's above your clearance. Level representative." A thunderbolt of tension hit the room. Crockett didn't blink. "That's what worries me." The chairman declared a break. Members began rising. But the press didn't leave. They smelled blood in the water. And far away, in a quiet NSA terminal, an alert triggered. Someone had just accessed the original version of the June 3rd memo. Someone knew the truth was bigger than just a hearing. It had started. The hallway outside the hearing room buzzed with hurried footsteps and whispers. News outlets had already started flashing Patel's quote, "That's above your clearance level, Representative," across TV screens nationwide. It wasn't just dismissive, it was chilling. Something about it hinted at a deeper, more dangerous layer of secrecy. Inside a quiet cafe across the street from Capitol Hill, former CIA analyst Thomas Ray watched the live news stream on his phone, his coffee untouched. His fingers tapped the table nervously. He had seen cover-ups before, redacted files, altered, memos, silent firings. But this felt different. He called his contact, investigative journalist Elise Morgan from the Republic Ledger. "Elise," he said without pleasantries, "the memo from June 3rd has 2 versions. Patel mentioned something on record today that shouldn't have been public." "You think it was a mistake?" Elise asked. "No," he said, lowering his voice. "I think he wanted someone to notice." Back inside the Capitol, the hearing resumed. Patel sat calmly, but his expression had hardened. Representative Crockett returned to her seat, her hands now holding a new document folder. The committee room felt like a stage mid-drama. Everyone waited for the next twist. Chairman Bolin leaned into his mic. "Representative Crockett, you have 5 more minutes." She nodded. "Director Patel, in your public statement last month, you said, quote, 'Nothing was taken out of context. Everything I submitted was part of a controlled review.'" "Yes," Patel replied, watching her closely. She lifted another sheet of paper. "Yet this internal communication, time-stamped June 2nd at 9:11 p.m., was forwarded with a line, 'Added in your handwriting, delay submission until legal confirms version B.' Can you explain what version B is?" Patel didn't blink. "Operational edits are not uncommon. Version B simply included footnotes for later legal clarity." "But it was never marked as a draft," she countered, "and no record of legal confirmation exists." Patel shifted, slightly in his seat. "You're digging in the wrong direction, Representative. This level of micromanagement harms oversight integrity." Crockett didn't respond directly. Instead, she held up a printed image of a classified material delivery log. "This log shows the documents you claimed were returned to the National Archives. But look at the timestamp, June 4th, a full day after your memo certified they were already back." Patel's jaw tightened. She pressed on. "So again, why sign a certification on June 3rd if the materials weren't returned until June 4th? The committee was silent. Even Chairman Bolin had stopped looking at his notes. Crockett lowered the document. "Director, are you protecting someone?" Patel leaned forward, speaking slowly. "I don't answer to rumors, Representative. I answer to law and process." Before she could respond, a loud notification pinged on a journalist's phone in the gallery. Then another. Then another. News was breaking. Elise Morgan had just published a short piece online. 2 versions, 1 memo. Inside Patel's declassified. Controversy. Inside the article was a scan of both June 3rd memos, one public, one buried, both signed by Patel. Only one mentioning a review deferment. The ripple was immediate. Reporters raised their hands. Flashbulbs sparked. Someone in the back gasped. Chairman Bolin banged his gavel. "We will have order." But it was too late. The outside world was already reacting. Senate leaders were demanding a closed-door security briefing. News anchors were cutting live into the session. And somewhere, in the Department of Justice, a prosecutor requested access to Patel's communications. Still seated calmly, Patel met Crockett's eyes and said something only she could hear. "You think you've won, but you're still asking the wrong question." Crockett tilted her head. "Then what is the right question?" Patel stood up, even though the hearing wasn't over. "It's not what I hid," he whispered. "It's why they let me hide it." Then he walked out. Crockett didn't move, but inside her folder was a letter she hadn't yet shown. One, mailed anonymously. One with no signature. Just one line typed in bold black ink. "If Patel talks too much, check the Valencia protocol." She didn't know what it meant. Not yet. The news cycle exploded. Every channel, from CNN to independent YouTube pundits, ran the headline, "Patel walks out. Classified memo leak sparks FBI oversight chaos." Inside a modest office at the Republic Ledger, Elise Morgan sat with her, sleeves rolled up and phone lines blinking nonstop. She had dozens of tips coming in, but one stood out. A man claiming to be from an EU intelligence outfit left a secure voicemail. "Valencia protocol is real. Check the NATO debrief logs from 2022. Patel wasn't supposed to be there, but he was." She played it twice before calling Thomas Ray. "I just got a whisper about NATO," she said. 2022, Valencia. Any idea what happened there?" Ray sighed on the other end. "Yeah. A secure summit after the Kabul evacuation. A lot of noise about biometrics falling into the wrong hands. No press coverage, no official transcript." "So what would Patel be doing at a European military summit?" she asked. "Only one answer," Ray said. "He was running parallel intelligence, off the books." Elise's fingers flew across her keyboard. Back at Capitol Hill, Reportess Jasmine Crockett had locked her office. Her staffers waited outside, as she reread the unsigned letter over and over again. "If Patel talks too much, check the Valencia protocol." She typed the phrase into an encrypted database, looking for a match. One classified hit appeared. "Project Valencia, Level 7 clearance required, access denied." Her stomach dropped. Level 7 clearance was above her. It required national security, council approval. Crockett wasn't naive. She knew doors this high up didn't open with questions. They opened with leverage. She picked up the phone and dialed the only senator who owed her a favor. Senator Maya Collins, a defense hawk with deep ties to the intelligence community. "You've got 30 seconds, Collins said flatly. "I need Level 7 access to Valencia. Protocol." Silence. "I know it's connected to Patel," Crockett continued. "And if I can prove he falsified the memo for reasons tied to a black-level NATO op, I can subpoena him again." "Do you have any idea what you're digging into?" Collins said. "No," Crockett admitted. "But I know it smells like foreign interference and domestic cover-up." Another long pause. Then the senator replied, "You'll get one file. It won't be digital. You'll meet someone at the Naval Archives tomorrow at 0800. Don't be late." Click. Crockett exhaled and leaned back in her chair. She still had no proof, just shadows and rumors. But the deeper she went, the more she could feel it. This wasn't about a memo anymore. It was about a network. Across town, in a black SUV moving quietly through DC traffic, Kash Patel sat silently as his aide handed him a burner phone. "You sure about this?" the aide asked. Patel nodded. "They're already in the data. We've got less than 48 hours. And if Crockett figures out what Valencia really was?" "She won't," Patel said, "because she'll be chasing the wrong trail, like they always do." The aide hesitated. "And the other file? The biometric one?" Patel's eyes narrowed. "It stays buried. We're not ready for that storm." Just then, his phone buzzed again. An encrypted message blinked on screen. Intercepted. Morgan's office accessed Valencia Index. Journalists are moving. Patel put the phone down, calm as ever. Then we move first. Meanwhile, Elise Morgan was printing out NATO debrief files, faded, redacted, and hard to read. But buried in one line of blurred text were two names: P.V. Kash Patel, observer; E. Calderon, liaison, Spanish military intelligence. She cross-checked Calderon's name with a 2023 whistleblower list. He had gone missing last December. No investigation ever opened. Ray called again. "Elise," he said, his voice shaken. The Valencia protocol wasn't just about biometrics or intel sharing. It was about building a ghost network, operatives with no paper trail. "You mean like spies?" "No," he said. "I mean like private assets, civilian faces, contractors trained in psyops and cyber warfare, run by ex-government men like Patel." Elise went cold. What were they used for? But Ray didn't answer. The line had gone dead. In the silence, Elise heard only one thing: the buzz of her office door as someone swiped a keycard from the hallway. Then footsteps, and a knock. The knock at Elise Morgan's office door was deliberate, slow, confident. Not the kind that came from interns or co-workers. She froze, her fingers still on the NATO files. The redacted pages lay scattered across her desk like broken glass. "Who is it?" she asked, forcing her voice to sound calm. A man's voice replied, "Thomas Ray sent me. We need to talk. Now." She opened the door a crack. Standing there was a tall figure in a worn coat, late 40s, buzz cut, eyes constantly scanning. He slipped a badge between the door and frame, an outdated NSA contractor ID. The name read, Mark Cleary. "I was at Valencia," he said. "Your friend Ray didn't—" Hang up, the line was cut. Elise pulled him inside quickly and shut the door. "Start talking," she said. Cleary glanced at the NATO papers. "You're getting close. Too close. Patel doesn't care about oversight hearings. Valencia wasn't a mistake. It was a test. Run. They called it a resilience network. But it was built to run beneath the law. Private intel cells. No oversight. No accountability." "What were they targeting?" Elise asked. "Not what, who," Cleary said. "Politicians. Diplomats. Journalists. Anyone who threatened the illusion of control." She stared at him. "You're saying the FBI director helped build an illegal surveillance and influence network under NATO's radar?" "I'm saying it's still active." Back at the Capitol, Representative Jasmine Crockett stood under the rotunda, staring, up at the dome, trying to collect her thoughts. In her hand was a thin manila folder handed to her that morning at the Naval Archives. It had only 2 words written on the cover: Valencia Debrief, Limited Release. She opened it again and reread the final paragraph. Subject: Patel's presence at Valencia, unofficial, unauthorized. Observed transmitting encrypted files from an unregistered device. Nature of files unknown. Chain of custody terminated. She had seen enough. Crockett turned toward her office, but was intercepted by her communications director, Maya. "You need to see this," Maya said, holding up her phone. "It's Elise Morgan. She's gone live." Crockett followed her to a nearby staff room, where a TV showed Elise broadcasting from an undisclosed location. "For the past 48 hours, we've been investigating a buried NATO program codenamed Valencia. What we've found connects to top U.S. officials, especially acting FBI Director Kash Patel. According to multiple sources, Patel wasn't just managing national security, he was building his own ghost network, a modern-day intelligence cartel, hidden behind classified paperwork." Elise held up the leaked document, watermark clearly visible. "And tonight we're asking Congress one question. Who gave Patel the authority to operate above the law?" Back at the FBI headquarters, Kash Patel watched the segment from his office, expression unreadable. Aide after aide filtered in, with updates. Sir, the memo's out. Senate Intelligence is calling emergency session. The Valencia program is trending globally. Brussels wants answers. Even the president's chief of staff had left 2 voicemails. But Patel stayed. Still. Then he stood, walked to the corner of his office, and opened a floor safe. Inside was a small encrypted tablet. He booted it up with a retina scan. A list appeared. Names, dates, symbols. Valencia Network, active assets. Patel scrolled to one marked CAV. He tapped twice. The screen loaded a message field. Command, secure Crockett. Silence. Morgan, disrupt all external feeds. He hesitated, just for a moment, then pressed send. 10 blocks away, Jasmine Crockett's staff scrambled to update her. Security detail. They had reason to believe her communications were being monitored. A white SUV with no plates had been seen idling outside her apartment the night before. Meanwhile, Elise Morgan had taken refuge in a secure studio built into her newsroom's basement. She wasn't naive. After a decade covering covert wars, she knew what a warning felt like. And the knock at her door wasn't the last one she'd any. Here. She turned to Cleary. If what you're saying is true, she said, this isn't about Crockett or hearings. This is a coup in slow motion. No, Cleary corrected her. It's the end of the old rules. And Patel isn't. Working alone. Just then, a message popped up on Elise's screen. A shadow contact, previously silent, had finally written back. Valencia is deeper than NATO. Look for codename Cobalt Echo. The target was never just America. Elise looked at Cleary. What the hell is Cobalt Echo? He paled, and for the first time since entering her office, Cleary looked scared. They're going offshore, he said. This isn't just about U.S. power anymore. This is global. Elise Morgan stepped out of the elevator into a cold, windowless parking garage. The smell of oil and dust filled her lungs. She pulled the hood of her coat tighter around her face. Cleary walked a few steps behind her, constantly checking their surroundings. The silence was unnatural, broken only by the distant hum of fluorescent lights. Where's the drop? Elise asked. Cleary nodded toward a black car parked near the corner. Inside the trunk. My contact left it this morning. They reached the vehicle. Cleary tapped twice on the side, a habit from his days in fieldwork, then popped the trunk. A simple gray hard case sat there, sealed with a biometric lock. You trust your contact? Elise asked. No, but the data matches what we've seen. Encrypted logs, Valencia protocols, and something tagged under Cobalt Echo. She lifted the case carefully. Let's go. Across Washington, Representative Jasmine Crockett sat in a dimly lit operations room beneath the Capitol, her staff scrambling around her. She stared at the declassified Valencia briefings now verified by Elise's report. The room smelled of coffee, tension, and printer ink. This wasn't just covert surveillance, she said, eyes locked on the red markings. This was targeted political engineering, micro-influence campaigns, psychological profiling. Maya, her comms director, looked up. Do you think the president knew? Crockett didn't answer right away. Her gaze fell on one line in the report. Project COE. Cobalt Echo designated for transnational phase launch upon congressional interference. She read it again. They weren't just watching us, she whispered. They planned for us getting too close. That evening, Elise and Cleary set up their equipment inside a remote news bunker in Virginia. Thick concrete walls blocked every signal but satellite. A red light blinked to life as they decrypted the contents of the hard case. File after file loaded onto Elise's screen. Maps, logs, voice recordings. Cleary froze as one audio file began playing. A familiar voice, low and deliberate. Once Cobalt Echo activates, there won't be any hearings left. Leverage the leaks, create chaos. The public doesn't need facts, they need fear. Elise's eyes widened. That's Patel. No doubt, Cleary confirmed. And this? She clicked on a folder marked ratlines. Hundreds of names. Spilled out. Politicians, journalists, tech executives. Each marked with a code. Each classified under threat levels. Crockett was listed. So was Elise. Cleary pointed to another entry. This list, it's not just targets. Some of these names are operatives. You're saying Patel planted people inside the media? Inside the government? Or flipped them? Just then, Elise's backup monitor blinked. An alert. Security breach. IP trace. Live feed interrupted. They've found us, Cleary muttered. Elise grabbed the hard drive and shoved it into her backpack. Out the back, now! They raced down the stairs, avoiding the main exit. Outside, 2 unmarked SUVs roared into the lot. Black-clad figures stepped out, speaking into comms scanning the perimeter. Elise and Cleary ducked into a wooded trail, sprinting through the dark. Helicopter blades sliced the air in the distance. Back in D.C., Crockett was in a secure line with a NATO liaison. I need clarity, she said. Did your office authorize anything called Cobalt Echo? The voice on the other end was hesitant. No, that's not one of ours, but we've seen references to it, mostly in Eastern Europe. It's not a program, it's a failsafe. Crockett's voice dropped. Failsafe for what? The liaison didn't respond right away. For collapse. If their influence networks are exposed, they trigger instability abroad, fuel unrest, distract global media. It's what we call a controlled burn. A second later, the line cut. Crockett slammed the receiver down. Elise needs protection, she said to Maya. We need to make this public before they erase everything. Meanwhile, Elise and Cleary stumbled into a roadside gas station, breathless and shaken. Elise pulled out her phone. No signal. We're blind, she said. Cleary nodded toward a landline behind the counter. We're not finished yet. She picked up the phone and dialed the only number she trusted, Jasmine Crockett's office. Maya answered. Elise, are you safe? No, Elise said, but we've got everything, and they know it. Maya's voice was tight. Jasmine's preparing a live press statement. They're trying to stop it. Then we go louder, Elise said. Tonight, I broadcast from every independent outlet that'll carry it. No filters, full drop. This is the last firewall before democracy. Burns. As she hung up, a dull thud echoed outside the station. Cleary looked out the window. One of the black SUVs had found them. They're here, he whispered. Elise stepped back, jaw set. She checked the drive in her bag. If they want it, she said quietly, they'll have to chase us into the light. Rain poured over the Capitol as night fell, hard, relentless, like the pressure building inside the U.S. intelligence community. Elise Morgan and Cleary had barely escaped the roadside ambush. Now, inside an unlisted safe house above a shuttered bookstore in Alexandria, Virginia, they prepared for the final step. A satellite modem blinked green on Elise's laptop. She exhaled, steadying her fingers on the keyboard. You really want to dump this raw? Cleary asked. No redactions? No time. No edits. The truth doesn't need polishing. She replied. He hesitated. You know what happens once this goes live. They won't chase. They'll eliminate. They're already chasing, Elise whispered, eyes locked on the screen. If we wait, it's not just democracy at stake. It's stability across 3 continents. Downstairs, a light flickered. Cleary moved to the window, saw 2 men in suits exit a car and enter a nearby cafe. The same black SUV from the gas station was parked discreetly around the corner. "We've got 15 minutes," he said. "Maybe less." Elise pressed a button. The files, everything from Patel's audio confession, the Cobalt Echo command, structure, to the psychological warfare blueprints, began uploading to 12 mirror servers, each set to automatically publish if she missed the check-in. At that same hour, Representative Jasmine Crockett stood in front of a closed Senate media hall. The planned press conference had been blocked by Homeland Security under the guise of national security risk. But Jasmine wasn't waiting. She turned to Maya. "Find me a live feed. Online, pirate radio, I don't care. They want to shut us down. We're going to talk louder." Minutes later, in a dim underground studio used by progressive activists, a live stream went live under the title, "America, You've Been Lied To. Tonight, We Prove It." The screen faded into Jasmine Crockett. No filters, no makeup, no script. "I come to you not just as a congresswoman," she began, "but as a citizen who has seen what fear does when it's hidden behind classified ink and national security stamps." The leaked files appeared beside her, side by side with Patel's June 3rd memo, annotated by Elise. "Tonight, you'll hear the voice of the man trusted to protect America, undermining it with the calm of a chess master." The audio played. Patel's voice, cold and calculated, laid out how to destabilize congressional authority through planted intelligence failures and domestic media distraction. The line, "Leverage the leaks, create chaos," repeated across social feeds like wildfire. Within 30 minutes, Cobalt Echo and other FBI leaks were trending worldwide. At the Pentagon, lights burned through the night. National Security Advisor Hal Trent stood in front of a dozen blinking monitors. "Damage report?" he asked. 3 embassies on alert. EU Parliament demanding US explanation. Moscow's intelligence network suddenly quiet. They might have known about Cobalt Echo. Hell, they might have helped fund it. Trent turned to his aide. "And Patel?" "Still inside FBI HQ, but—" "Sir, he sealed off communications." "Get me inside that building," Trent ordered. "Now." Back in the Alexandria safe house, Elise stared at the final upload bar. 94%. 96%. A gunshot shattered the window. Cleary pulled her to the floor. "They're not waiting anymore." Another shot, this one from the alley below. "Hard drives are set to publish if we're cut off," she said, crawling toward the emergency USB relay. "But they'll try to jam the signal." Cleary grabbed the relay. "We need to get to a broadcast tower. If they jam the satellite, we go analog. FM backup." Elise opened the floor panel, revealing a hidden ladder. "Old Cold War tunnel. Leads to an abandoned substation." They descended into the dark, footsteps echoing through concrete as flashlights flickered behind them. Voices in the distance. Meanwhile, inside FBI headquarters, Patel stood alone in his office. Screens displayed the data breach. His fingers tapped on his desk. He didn't look surprised. He looked prepared. He picked up an old secure satellite phone and made a call. "Phase 2, he said calmly. "Initiate it. If we go down, we take 5 governments with us." Silence. Then the reply, "Confirmed." In the tunnel below DC, Elise and Cleary emerged through a maintenance shaft. A rusted relay tower loomed ahead. Thunder cracked above them. Elise sprinted through puddles toward the control panel, shivering as wind tore at her coat. "This signal's from the 80s, Cleary muttered. "No way they'll expect it." She connected the drive to the analog transmitter. "Last check-in. Once I press this, everything we have becomes public record. No turning back." "Do it," Cleary said. Elise closed her eyes and flipped the switch. Across America, radios crackled to life. TVs in diners began glitching as the emergency frequency hijacked their signals. And then, a voice echoed. Elise's voice reciting the Patel memo. over maps, over images, over L. The storm had passed, but its wreckage echoed across the world. It was just after 4 a.m. in Washington when the president's emergency address was broadcast from the Oval Office. His face was pale, tired. He didn't speak from a teleprompter. There was no spin, only gravity. "My fellow Americans," he began. "Tonight, you witnessed evidence of a covert operation, led by members of our own intelligence community, designed to manipulate public perception, discredit elected officials, and influence global stability. Let me be clear, those responsible will be held accountable." But even as he spoke, protests erupted in D.C., New York, Dallas. Outside the FBI headquarters, thousands gathered. Some were chanting, "Truth first," others, "Shut it down." The nation was no longer divided by party, it was split by trust. Inside FBI HQ, Kash Patel stood surrounded by armed federal marshals. Yet he looked like a man still playing chess, even with the board overturned. "You've already lost," he told Director Trent, who had come in person. "You're under arrest, Kash. No more theatrics," Trent said. Kash smiled faintly. "You think it ends with me? You think Cobalt Echo was just an operation? It's a philosophy. Replace noise with strategy. Replace weakness with direction. You should thank me." Trent didn't flinch. "I read your June doctrine, the classified appendix you wrote for the previous administration. You built this chaos. You fed it. But now you'll answer for it." Patel said nothing as the cuffs were placed on his wrists. As he was escorted away, cameras flashed. More reporters had shown up than for any FBI arrest in recent memory. But Patel's eyes didn't blink. He wasn't afraid of the headlines. He knew how to manipulate them. Back in Alexandria, Elise, Morgan, and Agent Cleary watched the footage from a safe location. Their exposé had gone viral, over 80 million views in under 8 hours. Media across the globe had picked it up. Germany opened a formal inquiry into its own intelligence ties. India summoned the U.S. ambassador. The UN called for emergency sessions. "You think it's over?" Cleary asked, leaning on the windowsill. Elise shook her head. "Truth doesn't end anything. It just opens a new chapter." On the Hill, Jasmine Crockett was walking into the Oversight Committee chamber once more, but this time, to lead it. Her public takedown of Patel had ignited a movement. For the first time, she wasn't a freshman representative being questioned. She was setting the agenda. In her hand, she held a new resolution calling for deep reform of intelligence oversight protocols, independent civilian review panels, transparent declassification procedures, and whistleblower protections. The very reforms Kash Patel once blocked. As she passed the press corps, someone shouted, "Congresswoman, what do you say to critics who claim your actions endangered national security?" She paused, looked straight at the cameras, and said, "Secrecy without accountability isn't national security. It's state-sanctioned fraud." Meanwhile, the leaked June 3rd memo had begun unraveling deeper layers. Forensic experts traced metadata showing that edits had been made by unknown sources logged in from a Luxembourg IP just days before Patel's testimony. That discovery led to a wider probe into transatlantic intelligence laundering. An independent commission was forming. But in a silent corner of Langley, deep beneath CIA headquarters, a man known only by his codename Fenwick closed a file marked Cobalt Echo, Phase 2 suspended. He paused, added a note. Phase 3, evaluate viability. Assets remain embedded. Then he deleted the message entirely. Above ground, the world was reacting. But below, systems still turned. The architecture Patel helped build wasn't gone. It had just gone dormant. For now. 3 days later, Elise appeared on a late-night panel hosted by a BBC journalist. They asked, "Do you trust the system to fix itself after all this?" She looked directly into the camera. "No," she said, "but I trust the people watching, now. Because once you've seen the machinery behind the curtain, you stop believing the curtain is sacred." Then she stood up and left the stage. Her role wasn't punditry. It was vigilance. As the credits rolled, a quote faded onto the screen. "Power once unchecked doesn't disappear. It hides, rewires, and waits for silence. The only antidote, truth that refuses to shut up." And somewhere, behind a firewall no one could trace, a dormant server blinked to life, carrying nothing but one message. Cobalt Echo waits.